I was wrong. I thought I knew exactly what great leadership looked like and how to develop leaders to be there. You see, after all, I had more than 20 years experience of leading and influencing at all sorts of different leadership levels. I had a master's in organizational leadership. So surely I knew exactly how to do this. Or not. You see, I thought it was as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4. Get leaders into a classroom, maybe for 2 days or even 5 days, and I've done lots of both. Give them the best techniques, the latest theories, convince them how good this is and that this is the ideal way to lead. Then, of course, get them to actually practice the skills. You don't want them to leave with just theory. You want them to actually have practiced the skills, and they do it and they say, now I get it. And you launch them out, and of course they're going to be great leaders forevermore. Except it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. And so I discovered that I was wrong in 3 different ways. Let me tell you about that. The first way that I was wrong was thinking that knowledge and skills change behavior. They don't. Well, maybe they do for 5 or 6% of people, but not more than that. Knowledge and skills do not change behavior. Mindsets change behavior. You see, we do things according to our mindset. It doesn't matter how much knowledge we have, how much skill we have, that is no guarantee that our behavior is going to change. And I've seen this over and over and over again. Teaching the best possible techniques, practicing the best possible skills, and then not seeing the impact, not seeing the change. Mindsets are like an autopilot. If we don't shift them, any shift away is going to just automatically shift back. We need to find a way to reprogram the autopilot, to reprogram the mindset. Let me tell you a story. And this is a story that happened over and over and over again. Very early on in my leadership development career, I was doing this wonderful work and training people and getting them to practice the skills and mastering them. They were giving me feedback saying, thank you, Ian, we've learned so much. This has really set us up for the rest of our careers. And then, a year later, their team members come on the same training and they go, did my manager do this? Because I don't recall seeing the behavior change. I've never heard these things that we're learning today. You see, for most people, more than 90% of people, adding knowledge and skills does not, in a sustainable way, change behavior. The second way that I was wrong was thinking that, well, if people just applied the skills, if their behaviors just changed, they would be great leaders. Learning a technique, if this, then do that, if this, then do that. There are a few problems with that, it turns out. One of them is that people do not want to be led by a technique. They want to be led by a human being. They want to be led by somebody where they feel this is authentically what they're applying in their own lives, not just a technique that is being applied. In other words, not just leading out there, but something that is actually coming from substance in here. And this is so key. People do not want to be led by machines. They don't want to be led by somebody who's pretending to be perfect. They do not want to be led by a technique, first and foremost. They first want to be led by a human being. Then they don't mind if that human being is using some good techniques. And the problem is, behavioral models just look outwards. And the real thing is to look inwards. People want to be led by somebody who is self-led first. And this was such a big lesson in my own life. So let me tell you my story. My story is this. I needed to learn how to change behavior, to grow leaders. And I set out on this mission to change the world to great leadership. The problem is, I hadn't been on this leadership journey yet. In fact, I was so confused that I thought, well, I can't self-lead because I've got all sorts of struggles with self-control and obesity. And of course, leadership isn't control. Leadership is influence. Leadership is really about connecting and listening and then leading. And when I started to do that for myself, and I learned to nurture love in myself and learned to lead myself and influence myself, suddenly my impact as a leader, as a facilitator, dramatically increased because I led myself first. And from that, I could apply my knowledge and skills to leading others. But I needed to do it to me first. And that was the second place where I had been wrong. The reason that I'm sharing these mistakes with you is because we've taken all this learning and we have embedded what we've learned into our new essence-based leadership certification that we are busy launching. So if you are intrigued at all about how these lessons, which is now 40 years of experience, are translating, either come along to the launch or just sign up using the link below to find out more. And that could be the key. I hope that my failures are for your benefit. The third way in which I was wrong was a much more recent learning than the first two, and it was this. I assumed, we know what assume means, I assumed that if people understood where they were, which state of leadership they were in, that they could automatically learn without first having to get out of that state. So let me explain. We have an assessment. It's called the Egg 3 Leadership Assessment, and it assesses one of three states. Which state of leadership are you primarily in? And obviously it's always a mixture, but which are you primarily in? Are you primarily in a survivor state, where you're just trying to get through every day and you're trying to meet all the needs and the demands everybody places on you? Or are you in a striver state? Try harder, work longer hours. A striver state. And both of them have some advantages, but quite severe disadvantages. Or are you in a thriver state, where you've built internal capacity to make wise decisions, to meet the people demands and the results demands in such a way that we can do it with capacity and sustainability? The problem was, I thought that if people now knew they were in a survivor or a striver state, that simply by unpacking what thriver looks like and brainstorming and workshopping and getting them to talk to each other, that they would automatically start to learn these skills. Self-leadership skills, leading individual skills, leading team skills, leading transformation skills. All of these sort of things would just emerge because they now understood that was what the key was. I was completely wrong. Because while people are in a survivor or striver state, they cannot learn those skills. They're in too much of a pressured situation to take them on board and to internalize them. And so we developed pathways out of the survivor into thriver and out of striver into the thriver. And when people took those pathways and actions on board, where they realized the only way was if they took ownership. Nobody's going to come rescue them. If they took ownership of getting to the thriver state, only then would everything start to fall in place. And then they can learn and grow and acquire the skills. But while they're in survivor or striver state, they cannot. And I've seen this over and over again. And so we developed these pathways and we've seen the transformation. We've seen teams where there were 33% thriver go through the pathways and they're now 83% thriver, and it's transformational. They're now willing to learn, eager to learn, taking things on board, building internal capacity for great leadership. Transformation by first getting them out of that state. And you know what? I can't take all the credit for this, but this same organization just had their best financial results ever. Is it a coincidence? I'll leave it for you to decide. So let me tell you another story. I worked with a leader 4 months ago, did the assessment, came out as a striver, but right between survivor and striver, and then put together a development program and got them to do all the pathways. In fact, in their case, they did both the survivor and the striver pathway because they felt they needed both of them. And I met with them yesterday, and she'd retested as a thriver right at the top of the triangle. And she said this to me. She said, well, Ian, not only am I now in a thriver state, but not only that, I said to her, so what changed? How did it shift? And she said to me, I learned to take ownership and self-lead. I learned to put boundaries in place. I learned who I really am. And the transformation is so significant that she's transformed from a place of poor health, burnout, stress, to a place where she is just blossomed. She is just thriving, and you can see it. She does not look like the same person anymore. And now she's going, okay, now what can I do to learn? Now how can I grow? Now how can I acquire more skills to be a better leader, a better coach? How can I do that? And that is the transformation. First, get to a thriver state, then you can learn. So what is the state of leadership for yourself, for your team, for your leaders? What is that state right now, and why does it even matter? Well, I'm sure you've heard the expression from John C. Maxwell. He said, everything rises and falls on leadership. Or even maybe heard me say, leadership rises and falls on self-leadership. You see, leadership is the key. It's the key to getting the right results. It's the key to getting our staff engaged. It's the key to the customer experience. It's the key to sustainability. It's the key to legacy. It's the key to life. And it starts with self. But how? How do we get this journey going to make that kind of impact? It's the key to parenting. It's the key to our communities. And we're pretty much sitting in a global leadership crisis right now. So what do we do about that? Well, we need leaders who are ready to grow, leaders who want to grow. We need to get to that state. And we have built our entire essence-based leadership certification on these principles, bringing in micro-learning, bringing in workshopping, bringing in mindset changes, bringing in internal to external, first getting leaders to thriving and then growing them to fulfill their unique leadership potential. Will you join our launch to find out more, or will you click on the link below so that you know what is possible in leadership development?